Recording this session so that you can refer again later on for the benefit of those who are not here also. Okay, what we have done today is that we look into research proposal. Okay, we get some ideas on how to come up with the background and how to identify the research problem. From there, you come up with your research objective. Yeah. So, Rivas, maybe you can share with us if you have any topic or area that you want to do, so we can do it together on how to come up with your introduction or background of the study.
The area very interesting for me is management accounting. I sent for you the topic in WhatsApp.
No, okay, I know you have sent me. I want you to give me now what is
Uh,
anything, anything that you have in your mind, because we are just trying to brainstorm now.
about management accounting. Uh, Let me, doctor. I sent for you now. Let me. Can you check your chat box?
Saya for chat box. Hold on. It's a chat box. Wes, there's nothing here. Okay, hold on. Wow, so many.
All about management accounting.
Dah. Hmm. Dah bau dah. Okay, what you have here are all topics. All right. Let's just choose one which I think that effect of applying management accounting technique on improving the performance. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, Command C. Let's look at here. Okay, investigating effect of. Never mind. We just take effect of applying management accounting techniques on improving the performance of companies. Okay, so in this case, give me the keywords from the topic.
Management accounting.
I think that manage, manage, and then you have management accounting technique. Okay, and then you have the performance. Okay, so as we gone through just now, right? We for all these things, you have to identify. What is it? You have to identify this for each of that. Command C, right? Each of these management accounting techniques, performance of companies. You have to explain the 5W, right? So what is management accounting? Where is it applied? Who actually use management accounting? Why management accounting is important, and how actually management accounting is applicable, for example. Right? So the same idea that, because we're talking about the background, because you have to create the background of your study in order before you can come up with your research problem. So you have to give the background of the study. What is all this about? All right. What is management technique? So just now you talk about management accounting, but now you come up with the management accounting techniques. So what are the techniques available? All right. So you have to mention what are the techniques available and how actually companies are using this. What company are using this, for example, and how is it applied for companies. So all this must be in your background. All right. And then of course you're talking about performance of companies. Right, because in this case you have to elaborate on the concept of your research. Right, these are the three most important concepts that is applied in your research. So you have to make sure that you you as the writer, you as the researcher, you understand what it meant by all these three terms. Yeah. What do you mean by performance of companies? What is performance of companies? What are the measures used in order to what are the measures of performance for companies? Right? Why company use performance measurement? Why do you need to know the performance, for example, and how? All these things must be elaborated in your background. Then only, all right, you relate what is the problem. What is your research problem? So it's reverse, right?
Yes.
Research problem. So you have identified these three management accounting techniques and performance companies. And why is that a problem with management accounting techniques? And why? If they're management accounting techniques, if they're using management techniques, then what happened to the performance of the company? Is there a problem with that? Why
No.
do you have to choose this topic? What is the problem with these management accounting techniques and performance of companies? Hmm. As I mentioned earlier, all right, you have to identify the research problem with regard to your concept here. If there is no problem, there is no need for you to do a research on this area. There must be a problem. Are there not enough evidence on that management accounting techniques used and how it improved the performance of the companies? I do not know. So how you identify the problem, you have to go back to the literature. You have to go back, you have to do some research. What is the relationship between this? You have to relate between management accounting techniques, all right, before you identify the problem. Relate management accounting techniques, MAT, and performance. Right? So how is this related and what is your problem? Then from there you see, oh, there's a problem with this. There's a measurement is not enough. There's not enough research in this. So this goes back to your literature, right? So maybe if you have any idea why this is an interest to you.
So I must find the problem and the solution for that. Yes.
No, before you solve, give solution. What is the problem?
Yeah.
How could you solve without knowing the problem?
Yeah.
For example, if you want to fix something, right, you must know what is the problem with that thing.
Yes.
If you do not, if you are not able to identify the problem, you cannot fix the problem.
Yes.
You cannot come up with a solution of what? Solution for what? Right? So identify the research problem first.
Yes.
So again, normally your readings will help you with identifying of the research problem. All right, so it means that you have to look into papers or articles that talk about management accounting techniques and performance and how they relate that with the performance, and then from there you can identify the problem.
Yes.
Okay, so if you look into your other topics as well, that's how you do it. You look at the term that you use in your topics, all right, and that's why I say that before you come up to the topic, of course you have identified your area is management accounting, right? And under management accounting, there's so many things that you can look into. So maybe you have identified, okay, these are the topic that may interest me to do more research on that. Yeah. So once you have identified that, then you go into literature, then that's how you develop your research. Right. So once you have identified your research problem, then you can come up with your research objective. Right. You know the problem, then then you come up with research problem. It means that objective, of course, in order for you to provide solution to the problem, right? So that is the objective of research, to provide solution to the research problem. So your research problem and your research objective must be related, right? You have identified A is the problem, so now my objective is to provide solution to the problem. Okay. And of course, your research objective come up. Then, of course, you have to identify also what is the significance of the research, right? So, for example, if you're looking at the management accounting technique and performance of company. So why is it for you to do this research? All right, what is the implication of it? Okay, so all this must be identified before you conduct the research. That's why the name is research proposal, because we want to look at this. We want to see what you are doing, all right, what is the problem, what is your objective of doing the research, and how important is the research? What is the significance of the research? If it's not significant, why you do research? If it's not useful, why you want to spend your money and time to do the research? So your research must be something that is significant, all right? It could be to a small group of I do not know, it could be a small group of people, could be to the government, it could be to the company. So your research findings should be something which are useful. That is very important. Okay, so that's why if you look into the content of research proposal, you have the significance of the study, right? And then I want to go into the timeline, right? So when you have your timeline, so it's important that you know that, all right, you know that your research must be realistic, right? Realistic and doable, right? Very important, right? What is realistic? Of course, you have to look at your time, right? Data availability. How are you going to get the data? And then costing, the financing or the financing of the research, for example. What else? Your location. All this has to be taken into account when you think about the research, right? So as I given just now, this is an example of the what this is, for example, here, all right, in this example I continue. This is how I give the introduction of the research, and the objective here is that the overall aim of the study is to understand, because the problem just now about the low tax compliance, yeah. So we want to understand why the tax compliance behavior of Kano businesswoman, and objective is to get the tax knowledge, for example, and examine the tax compliance behavior of Kano businesswomen in SME. All right, so expected results here is shown that tax knowledge has positive effect towards tax compliance, because the problem identified earlier is that low tax compliance, yeah, in Kano. So previous studies say that, okay, tax knowledge has a positive effect on compliance behavior. So using theory of planned behavior will help to understand the tax compliance behavior of the business women in Kano. Right? So then you have to identify what is your research method. Where is my research method? Do I have my research methodology here? Research method. Research. Okay, this one is your research method. Literature review, we come after that. All right. Let's look at research method before we do that. Okay, or maybe because if you want to look at literature review, right, I have given a lot of, I have shared with you in the Google Classroom some of the YouTubes where you can actually look and do a lot more readings or research on the literature review. But hold on, yeah. So I want to look into the research method as well. Okay, the literature review here, because I have shared with you in the Google Classroom. All right, these are some of the videos, the YouTube videos, for example, on how to write a literature, right? And from there, right, you can move and look for some other references on how to deal with the literature review. Yeah. So what is a literature review? Remember that just now, for example, you have identified for example, what is management accounting? So literature review looking at what others have done in the area. right? So it goes back lah, what in management accounting techniques, and then the performance of the companies. So your literature review will also go back to, for example, your management accounting technique, and your performance. Yeah. So you have to look at in each of these areas what people have done in this and what are their findings. Yeah. So, but we do not want to talking about review is that you will review a lot of journals paper, right? But when you do your literature review write up, right, you are not going to summarize one article and then another one article. But what you are going to do is that you're going to have these, all right, as a theme, all right, for example, on MAT, what have been done on management accounting techniques, what people have done, what are the techniques available, what are the research that have been conducted on those techniques, and what are their findings. All right, so you arrange your literature review based on the theme of discussion, right? Rather, and for example, the performance, how do people measure performance of a company, especially with regard to the management accounting techniques. All right, so you look into this paper and then you give some synopsis, for example, an analytical review of all this paper, right? So from the literature review, then you are going to identify what are missing, right? Or could be that what are the findings, what are missing, what are the findings, prior findings, previous findings on this, and then what can be done further improved from the research perspective. Yeah. So sometimes looking at the journal article, all right, at the end, then you see that in the conclusion, sometimes they give you some of the limitations of the paper, right? So these limitations can give you some ideas on how you can actually conduct your own research. For example, all right, for example, it says that, okay, the paper examine a group of companies in the Middle East, for example. Yeah. So other more research should be conducted in other countries so that we can make a comparison on the performance of company using MAT, right? So now that's why you can do there's this the scope, right? Scope of your of research will also depends on the research review, right? Scope, it could be region, it could be types of companies, right, or group of companies. It could be on the it could be on the time, right, the timeline, many. So it depends on how the literature, how is the review of your literature on the topic. So it will give you some ideas on how to actually uh, develop your research proposal. Okay. So again, in your literature review, of course, we have your these are the things that you should have in your literature review as a beginning. All right, from there you develop further, right? And you may come up also with your research framework, right? Research framework, it means that based on what people have done, then you identify the scope of your study, and sometimes you are looking at the variables also. What are the variables used, right, in previous study? Variables here, it could be the dependent variable, independent variable, or dependent variable. Yeah. Or you can have later, you will see that you can also have your moderating variable. But for master paper, I suggest that you only concentrate your independent and dependent variable. You can have your moderating variable, but not necessarily, right? So again, for a master level, the research is expected that you should be able to show that you know how to conduct a research. starting from the background of the study, identifying the research problem, research objective, significance of the study, conduct a literature review, all right, and then you conduct research methodology. It means that in terms of data collection, data analysis, and how do you come up with findings, then come to a conclusion. So that is a systematic procedure in conducting a research. So at the master level, all right, it's not the contribution of the research is not so much, right? But we look at the process of doing the research, that you must be able to do all this process accordingly, right? Because it's a systematic, right? You cannot do collect data first, then only you want to you want to think about your literature review. No, it has to be process 1 followed by 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? That's why it's called a systematic activity, all right, doing a research. All right, when we talk about the research method, it means that it's talk about how are you going to do a data collection, right? So remember that, for example, it goes back to your research objective. For example, Nasra just now, what is Nasra? She's not here. All right, effect of CSR on financial performance. All right, so I will delete this SME because I'm not sure what is the scope. Right? If scope could be SME, it could be financial institution, it could be manufacturing. So how are you going to, because your data, because in this case, what is your research objective? For example, is to, let's say, is to examine the effect of CSR on financial performance. Right? So this is, so if this is your objective, then you should know that, all right, in order for me to examine the effect of CSR on financial performance, how would I get the data? Where would the data come from? All right, so you're talking about financial performance. I mentioned just now, you have to identify what you mean by financial performance. How do you measure financial performance? And therefore, you should know that where we can get the information about financial performance. Right. For example, I say that, okay, financial performance can be retrieved from an annual report of companies. Yeah, annual report of companies. So it means that you're talking about SME, it's difficult for you to get a financial reports because they are not required by the law to publish their annual report. So if you want to do a financial performance data, then I suggest that you use annual report. Right, so if you use annual report, then you must make sure that these companies are the one available, the annual report of companies are available. So that is your methodology. So it reflects to your methodology, right? So again, your methodology depends on your research objective. Yeah, so what is your objective? Then you decide how you're going to collect the data. Your data in this case can be in the form of primary data, right, or secondary data. What is a primary data? Means that data which is first-hand data, right? Normally when we talk about primary data, we are referring to interviews, surveys, all these are focus group, all these are primary data. Means that data which is you collect first hand. But secondary data means that data which is available already. You don't have to come up with the data. The data is available. Contoh, for example, is your annual reports. All right, you can have what is other than that? You can have annual reports. Where else is the annual? Okay, database. Right now, you can buy data from database. Right, especially if you're doing economics or finance, they normally have a database. Right, data from a database. So they don't have to fit your annual report. What else? So these are the secondary data. All right, there are a lot more lah. Yeah. So it depends on your research objective, and that's why I say that your research method, right? You have to think about it has to be available, right? Availability is very important because your data, without your data, your research is nothing. So you can have a very marvelous you can have marvelous proposal to do research, but if data is not available, right, you can't do anything, right? You cannot come up with your findings, you cannot run your data, there's no nothing, right? So it's bullshit, right? So your data must be available, then only you are able to conduct your research. So when you think about your research, all right, what you want to do, think also where the data will come from, right? Because if you think too much and then at the end of the day data is not available, then you can't do anything. So you're just wasting your time. Okay. All right. In under research method, we also talk about data analysis, right? So depending on your what do you call that, research methodology, right? Again, we are talking about whether you are doing a quantitative or you are doing a qualitative. Yeah, quantitative or qualitative. So quantitative here normally refers to annual reports, right? Sometimes you can also do qualitative based on the annual report. So I cannot do that. All right, quantitative and the qualitative. So data analysis also here depends whether you are using, you are going to analyze your data using SPSS, or you are going to use if it's a qualitative. Sometimes we use now we use Atlas DI, right? Yeah, so data analysis, and from data analysis you have your findings. Okay, it's Azan now. Okay, so let's look at here. What is my research methodology? Qualitative approach, data collected using semi-structured interviews. Okay, so I purposely leave it here so that you can have a quiet reading on this, and you see that how I come up with the research methodology. So for this research, we decided to collect is a qualitative approach whereby we conduct a semi-structured interviews among businesswomen in Kano. Right, Kano is in Nigeria, and then we also use theory of planned behavior as a guideline in the development of the interview instrument and data analysis. Okay, and then data will be analyzed using thematic analysis using Atlas DI. So just now I mentioned about Atlas DI. So this one is actually help you in analyzing qualitative information. Yeah, for example, from that interviews, from focus group, So all these transcript has to be transcribed and then only analyzed. Significance of research, that's why I say that when you do your research, you must show the significance of research. If it's not significant, why you do the research, right? So this is how. Okay, then we also have this what we call the project schedule, right? So when you know that, okay, you have how many semester for you to finish your master. So you know that in the first semester, now for example, you're doing a CIA, contemporary issues, and then you have to come up with your research proposal, right? And then so you have to take into account from now until finish, right, until your submission of your thesis, for example. All right, so you have to take into account research and compilation of your literature review, data collection, data analysis, writing and proofreading of thesis. All this has to be taken into consideration, right? As I mentioned earlier, that is everything okay?
Yes, madam.
Is Nuha is here? Rivas is here. Nasra? Not yet.
Yes.
Nasra is here?
Yes, madam.
Okay, good. All right. Where were we? Okay, the timeline. All right. So you have to look into it. You have to consider the it has to be realistic. All right, and that's why your research must also doable so that you can finish your research in time. All right. We hope that none of you will have to apply for extension of time. Yeah, because we want you to finish your thesis within the time frame. We want you to graduate, right, your Master of Science in Accounting within the time frame. Hopefully, you can graduate on time, GOT. Yeah. So careful with the need. That's why from the very beginning, all right, you start writing, you start looking into your topics, all right, you start thinking about how you want to do your research. Okay. Okay, any question before I go further? Okay, if we were to look at Nasra, sorry, yeah, we were to look at the topics shared by Rivas, right? Investigating the application of management accounting techniques. So when you say about, okay, if you're looking at this topic, all right, application of management accounting technique, again, you have the management accounting technique, so you must know what are the techniques available under management accounting, all right? So when you talk about investigate, so what? What you want to investigate? You want to, so what? Why? What is the problem with management accounting techniques? All right, so your topic cannot be simply just like that. The title of the topic, the title of your research should tell the reader what you are doing. All right. Okay, for example, number one is very beautiful because you investigate effect of management accounting technique on improving the performance of companies, right? So you know that, okay, you are looking at the management accounting technique and relate that with the performance of the company. But in number two, you investigate application of management accounting technique. So you what? Investigate MAT. So what? What is the purpose of the what is the problem with the management accounting technique? Right, so it cannot be just because it looks nice like that, right? Management accounting challenges and opportunities is good, right? But when talking about looking at the topic itself here, management accounting challenges and opportunities, what kind of data that you should get? How can you get this information about the challenges and opportunities on management accounting? Rivas.
Uh,
Can you get challenges and opportunities from an annual report?
Actually, I think it is little bit difficult.
No. My question is, where can you get the data for these challenges and opportunities? No, this can be done, but you should know where are the sources of data. Can you get that from annual reports?
I think cannot.
Cannot, right? Because one is management accounting, because you financial report is financial accounting, not management accounting. All right. Number two is that challenges and opportunities, you can only get this information from the people involved in management accounting. All right. I think that the only way that you can do this is by interviewing officers that involved in the management accounting. Then you can ask them what are the challenges and what are the opportunities in management accounting. You can do this, all right, but it has to be a qualitative. It cannot be quantitative. It's a qualitative. And of course, in coming out with the challenges, you must do a research on what are the available challenges based on the literature, right? What are the challenges that have been identified by the previous researchers? What are the opportunities available? And then only you can come up with the interview structure, for example, and then you can ask them what are the challenges. For example, you have identified, and then you can curate, right? You can develop your research instrument, the questionnaire, in order for you to conduct the interview. So you have the guidelines on the challenges and opportunities, but it's just that you want to get, maybe, for example, you to conduct Malaysia, right? So what are the challenges and opportunities faced by officers, right, in Malaysia? Or maybe you want to be more specific, looking at for example, all right, manufacturing companies in Malaysia. I do not know. So the scope is, it could be anything, right? But you have to justify why you choose that scope, right? But the area is okay. I mean, but it's just that the method, it has to be qualitative in nature. Yeah. And then you have concept, of course. So similarly, with all this strategic management accounting, quality costing, so wide. All right, it's always so wide. You ask yourself, so why? Why do I have to do research in this area? What is the problem with Japanese management or lean production? Is it actually being conducted here? Which company actually doing this? So in this case, it's more of a case study, because not all companies are actually doing Japanese management. So you have to look at company that actually doing Japanese management, and maybe you want to look into their challenges and opportunities, all this lah, right? So when you do a case study, most likely it's a qualitative in nature. You get that? Okay. So next is I want us to look into, I will go through Google Classroom. Okay. All right. So you know that you're going to do a lot of reading, right? From now on, starting from tonight. Yeah, you have to do a lot of reading. So what is the best way for you to read a paper? All right. To read a paper, because there are a lot of articles. Sometimes we call it articles, sometimes we call it journals, sometimes we call it papers. Yeah. So it's the same thing. So you must make sure that when you read a paper, right, you don't read everything, because it will take a lot of time. Because now you are actually trying to identify, all right, the source of information, or you want to look at the topic, or what you want to look at what people have done, for example. So you can check on this, how to read a paper. So let's say, let's look at an example. Would like to look at this video for, it's only a 9 minutes. All right. So this one is how to read a paper, and later we look into how to write an academic writing, how to write a literature. So this is just a beginning. So then you can keep on looking for information on this area, right? So just give 10 minutes watching this.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So this video is kindly sponsored by Skillshare, an online learning community for creatives. I'll be telling you a bit more about their inspiring classes at the end of this video. A topic that I get asked quite a bit, and it's about reading research papers.
You want the
sort of
subtitles?
whether you need to read from the start to
We'll
the
see
end
whether
in
it's
every single
okay.
detail. And the answer to that is absolutely not. And today I'm going to go through exactly how you want to read a research paper in about, 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how much detail you want to go into. So I've been reading on Notability. It's a great app. You are able to import a PDF, highlight, scribble, write on it without having to actually put anything out. So it's a great resource, and I'd highly recommend you to download and take a look. As you can see, just unwrapped the pen, and there's some ASMR for you right there. By reading research papers like this, you're enabling yourself to have sort of a disciplined approach, and prevents you from drowning in the details before you even get a bird's eye view. Every paper does not need to be read in the depth that it presents itself in. So it's important to be able to quickly skim through the important details before you decide to dive in and read the whole paper. So starting off, you want to look at the title of the paper, as this is probably the best, biggest selling point and the most important few words where you might have some keywords that are included, give you an idea of sort of the topic that's about to be discussed. You can see here I'm pulling out the method, and I'm also pulling out the sort of what the result is. You then want to move on and look at the abstract. Now the abstract is usually written in a few kind of sections, and it's quite consistently written like this, so you can just pull out these bits of information. The first is the background, sort of the why. Why is it that this paper is written? What is the gap in literature and the gap in research that it is trying to fill? You then want to look at the methods. Just quickly, is it an animal study? Is it a human study? And then you want to look at the results quickly and the discussion or the conclusion. So there's sort of a couple parts that you almost always have in the abstract, and you can very quickly just pick them out. And again, at this point, you can decide, well, actually, this isn't something that I'm interested in, or it is something that you're interested in, and you can keep on reading from there. You then want to take a look at the first and the last paragraph of the introduction. Again, this just gives you a bit of a background and helps you understand what the hypothesis is, and helps you understand what the research aims are of this particular paper. The first paragraph, because that usually gives you the sort of general background, and the last paragraph, because typically the last paragraph tells you their sort of intention and kind of summarizes what's to come. And again, it allows you to sort of understand why the paper is being written, what their research aims are and their hypothesis is, and sort of a summary of their methods as well to come. It's quite nice. It's definitely, the last paragraph is something that I always look at, even if I don't always look at the first paragraph. You then want to move on and take a look at the subsection headings of the results. Now, this might seem a bit random because the methods come next, but the methods aren't really important unless you're looking to copy the paper and do the study in a slightly different way. The methods are not really that important. So I'll jump straight to the results, and I'll look at the titles of the subsections. And typically the titles are a quick snippet of the result that's to come. So usually what papers will do when they're writing up their results is give you a quick sort of summary in the title, in the subtitles. You then want to move on and look at the conclusion. Now, it might seem like you've jumped quite far ahead, but really at this point you understand what the results are, you know what the paper is trying to achieve and what their research aims are, so you can just jump to the conclusion to get a quick summary. And as you can see, it's a very short summary of what this paper found. And to be honest, you don't really need to look beyond this point, especially if you're not looking at the paper in too much depth. At this point, you'll understand what they've done, how their paper fits into the literature, and how their paper fits into the research space, and their final kind of their unique results. And that's all you really need to know at this point. But if you do want to go into more depth, you can look at the results and kind of look at the graphs or the tables or the figures or whatever it is that you've got in front of you at a bit more depth, and pick out some significant results. And this could be in the form of a graph. As you can see here, there's a particular very significant result, and you can just kind of take a look at that, point that out, and just remind yourself to take a look at it in more detail maybe later on. And again, this kind of gives you an overview of what this paper is showing in a bit more depth, and can allow you to interpret that for your own research. You then want to look at the limitations. Now, this paper is quite nice because it has got its own little section for limitations. Limitations allow you to sort of understand what the flaws were or what some barriers and challenges were that were faced by that particular study. And lastly, but definitely not least, I always try to highlight a couple of other references that may be cited in this particular paper that I think are interesting and that could be useful for my own study. Now, there might be a paper where they reference and they've said that this study has shown X, Y, and Z, and we're basing our study on this. And I might find that really interesting. I might want to look at that myself. I tend to highlight those papers and try to take a look at it at a later date. And that's it. You're pretty much done. Now, that wasn't very, very long at all. So starting off, always look at the title, pull out your keywords, then look at your abstract, identify sort of the results and the methods. Then you want to read the first and the last paragraph of your introduction or the literature review. You then want to take a look at the results and just quickly skim through the titles to kind of gauge what the research is that they've actually found and what the results are, and some of the key results, if you like. You then want to read the conclusion very quickly just to summarize and get a summary of what the paper actually found. And then if you want to go into more detail, look at the results and try to identify and pull out some key results that you think could be applicable and could be interesting for you and your study. And then, like I said, in this case, we have got some limitations here, so that could be something to look at as well, just for contextualizing the study and understanding what the challenges were. And then last but not least, pull out a few references that you can take on and keep on reading to understand a bit more about the context and a bit more about this particular research field and what else there is out there. Now, what I've described is sort of a first pass where you're just understanding the theoretical basis, you're understanding kind of what kind of paper this is and what contribution this particular study has contributed to their research field. And if you do want to go into more depth, then of course you do have to look into more depth as to the methods and sort of the exact results and maybe the stats and the figures. But really, for most papers, I would say for sort of 75% of papers that you read, this would suffice. You've actually taken out quite a lot of information already just from doing a quick overview as I have done. So as I mentioned earlier, Skillshare is sponsoring this video, so thank you so much, Skillshare, as always. It's an online learning community for creatives where millions come together to take the...
All right. How do you find the video?
A lot of your information are there. I think it's a bit informative.
But it's a quite fast. All right. So if you look into the YouTube, you can actually slow down. You know how to do that, right? You can go to the setting and the playback speed. If you think that it's too fast for you, you can slow it down 0.75. But if it's too slow for you, you can actually speed it up, right? So that's how you can actually control the YouTube so that it will benefit you. So just let's make a quick. Where's your literature review just now? Literature review. So I just put it here. New slide. So let's read the paper quickly. How are we going to do this? Number one is that, anyone remember? Look at the...
Just read first paragraph and last paragraph, last sentence.
Huh?
Read the first sentence and you can find what is the purpose for this paper.
Well, that's the... Okay, I think that the first one is that we are going to look at the title of the paper. All right. From the title, it gives you ideas on what is being examined. All right. So the title will tell you, for example, just now we went through the title of your research, so it gives you ideas on what is actually being examined. Right. Number two is that you look into the abstract, because the abstract will tells you, all right, an introduction of the paper, all right, just a bit, all right, just to introduce a bit, and of course it talk about the problem, the research objective, and then findings, right? The result is also shared here, including some of the limitations. So You can find all these in the abstract. So it means that the abstract is a summary of the whole paper. So that's why normally abstract will give you a lot of information, and then sometimes by looking at the abstract, you can decide whether the paper is relevant to your research or not. So reading the title and the abstract is the first two things that are important when you read a paper. Then you can decide whether you want to go through further or not. Yeah. If you want to go further, then you look into the first, look at the introduction, right? Introduction, here we look into the first and last paragraph, right? First and last paragraph. So here it tells you what? It tells you on the aims of the paper as well as the summary, how the paper is being structured. Then you look into the results of the paper. Results here, there are subheadings. So look at what are the main, this one tells you on the main findings, yeah, from the research. And number 5 is that go into your conclusion. And this conclusion, you read, because this one is again a summary of the research. We give you what is the objective again, and what is the main findings, and including other things as well. Yeah. Number 6, okay, if you think that this is the good paper, then maybe you want to go back to results and look in more detail. Right, and then don't forget in the limitation, right? So limitation is in part in the conclusion. Right, in the conclusion, it will give you the limitation of the research. So sometimes, right, the limitation of the research will give you some ideas on how you can actually improvise the research, right? And then that limitation, if you can improve, you can apply that in your paper. So for example, if the limitation is the number of observation is small, then maybe in your paper you want to increase the number of observation. Limitation, for example, is doing a survey, for example. So there are some disadvantages of the survey. So in your study, you do interview, because the interview will give you more depth data, right? And finally, it's also important where you have to look at the references. It gives you ideas, list ideas on other papers, list of other relevant or related, all right, papers that you can go further, all right? But remember that be aware of procrastination, right? Because sometimes when you read a paper, you tend to keep on reading without acknowledging, without taking notes, without pause, right? Because you have to know that whenever you have a paper, right, so what have you got from that paper? So if you have all this, right, you can put that into an Excel form, and then you can have a summary of this paper or this information in the Excel form. Then you can actually have a compilation of the papers that you have actually read. So this helps you to go back whenever you have finished doing all the readings, and then you want to go back to which paper. So that's why your literature management, what do you call that, reference management, what do you call that, reference, do you call that reference management or literature management, right? I want you to check on whenever there's a course on Mendeley, right? Or you can use any of this Mendeley literature management, right? So you must use, I want you all to do information on Mendeley or you can use Mendeley. I think that most students are using Mendeley. In my case, I use EndNote, right? So make use of this referencing management so that it helps you in managing your literature. All right. So when you do a reference list also is easier because everything will be taken up automatically. Right, so make sure that you go into this course, what we call Mendeley, all right, in order for you to learn how to manage your literature. Okay. Any question? Right, I have about 20 more minutes. Okay. How to write an academic writing. I have one on how to write a literature. I have one on how to write a paragraph. Hold on, yeah, and let me check. This one is the one that I showed
bibliography,
you just
organised
now.
in the way that you have chosen. Make sure it has an introduction,
Okay,
main body.
hold on. I look for right paragraph. Okay, this one is also good. I hope that this is the one. Okay, so when you do writing, you make
Look
sure
at
that
these
you
two
know how.
paragraphs. Can you tell which one is a good paragraph and which one is not?
Let me.
Yes, the first one is a good paragraph. How do you know? It's a good paragraph because it focuses.
Okay, before
on
that, okay, let's read the first one. My mother is a very busy person. She works 16 hours a day. She goes to office early in the morning and comes back quite late at night. Sometimes she even works on Saturdays. She has no time for play or fun. Can you understand the paragraph? So the paragraph talks about the first sentence say that my mother is very busy person. All right, and all the other sentences after that all give you information how busy the mother is. Right, so this is one whole paragraph that talks about one thing only, the busy person. Right, and the first sentence talk about the mother is a very busy person, and the other statements followed that is how busy is the mother. But if looking at the second example, my mother is a very busy person. My toy car is broken. The cows are grazing in the field. The sun sets in the west. We live in Dankuta. My name is Kali Prasad. A mouse is a little creature. How do you see the second example?
It doesn't even match. They are mixed with
Yeah.
something that are unrelated.
Unrelated, and it talks about everything under the sun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And don't be surprised that you may be doing the same thing when you do your thesis. Okay, because remember that your paragraph must only talk about one thing, and the other segments only emphasize or give examples of the first sentence. We call it as a topic sentence. Do you understand the difference between the first and the second?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's go through.
Single topic, which is my mother. The second paragraph talks about many different things. In fact, each sentence in the second paragraph talks about a different topic, which is really a bad idea. So, a good paragraph focuses on a single topic or idea. Remember that. Today, we shall learn about three very important components of a paragraph: topic sentence, supporting sentences, adding details. Look at this simple paragraph. Read it aloud.
Okay, read it aloud. Have you read it? Okay.
Now look again at the first sentence. It says, trees are useful to us. This is called the topic sentence of the paragraph. The rest of the sentences in the paragraph must support or agree with this topic sentence. Now look at the other sentences in the paragraph. Do they support the topic sentence? Do they tell us how the trees are useful to us? Yes, indeed. They support the topic sentence. Trees are useful to us. So, this is a good paragraph indeed. It has a topic sentence, and the rest of the sentences in the paragraph support the topic sentence. This sentence says, a dog is a useful animal. All the other sentences must support or prove how a dog is a useful animal. Let's see. It guards our house. Does this sentence prove that a dog is a useful animal? Yes. It protects us from burglars. Does this sentence support that the dog is a useful animal? Yes, of course. It plays with us and entertains us. Does it support that a dog is a useful animal? Yes, of course again. It keeps us safe and makes our life easy. This sentence too supports the topic sentence. So, a good paragraph must have a topic sentence that controls the other sentences. Now, here is a little exercise for you. Look at this paragraph. The topic sentence is missing. Can you put in the topic sentence in this paragraph? Well, here are two options for you. Choose one. You are right. The correct option is Mrs. Llama is a very busy person. As you have seen, the main sentence of a paragraph, which is usually the first sentence, is called the topic sentence. The rest of the sentences in the paragraph are called supporting sentences. They support the topic sentence. Have a look at this paragraph now. It's about Pokhara. What is the topic sentence? Pokhara is an amazing place to visit. The rest of the sentences, which are the supporting sentences, must support why or how Pokhara is an amazing place to visit. In this paragraph, there are 3 supporting sentences. Let's look at each of them. First, it is a place known for its scenic beauty. Also, Pokhara offers a range of adventure activities for the visitors. In addition, you get to visit exotic places within the city. As you can see, all of these 3 supporting sentences support the topic sentence, Pokhara is an amazing place to visit. Now, let's go to the next item, adding details. Often, you need to add details to your supporting sentences. Adding details makes the paragraph stronger. Let's see how we can add details to our paragraph about Pokhara. Look, each of the supporting sentences has a detail now. Does the paragraph look better? Yes, indeed. So it's important to add details to the supporting sentences. You can give examples and further information when you add details. For example, let's look at the first supporting sentence. It talks about scenic beauty. In the details section, examples of scenic beauty are given. For example, clear views of snow-capped mountains like Annapurna and Dhaulagiri, and the scenic reflection of Machapuchhre Peak on the waters of Phewa Lake are mentioned.
Where is it? Ah, where is it? I like that one just now. This is the one? No, this one, right? Copy. Where is it? Okay. So this is how you can actually learn on how to write. All right. First of all, that is a paragraph. So you will also have to look later how to write an academic writing. Right. So I have given you some of these videos in the Google Classroom. I want you to go through, all right, these videos, at least the one that I've shared here. And then, all right, this is your homework. What is your homework? I will give you a homework, create, I give you assignment here, right? Writing, academic writing. Right, I want you to write 5 paragraphs. Right, so I would not be so do you understand why I say that write 5 paragraphs on your research area? Five paragraph means that you have introduction, then main, body, let's say topic. Why is it so slow? Okay, so that would be your homework. All right, you are supposed to write me a 5 paragraph. And I want you to submit that before our class. Oh, do I still have class next week? Okay, you can submit to me. When can you do that? Today is Friday. Can you submit that on Tuesday? Hello?
Okay, yes, madam.
Yeah. Please
Inshallah.
submit that on Tuesday so that I can give you some feedback on that, even though I may, okay, from next